Hi, this is Ren.
This is Casey.
And this is All Walks of Film. So, we're going to watch The Last Jedi tomorrow. And yes, I know a lot of people have seen it already. But I've tried to pretty much avoid all trailers to the movie. I want to go into this movie as raw as I can. I want to go in without a lot of preconceived biases based on trailers, based on speculation, based on leaks, all that sort of stuff. I want to be as honest as I can about the movie, separated from everything else. Obviously, you can't remove it from the original trilogy, nor can you remove it from the saga as a whole.
But you can make a judgment based on the previous installments.
Yes, you certainly can. So recently, outside of George Lucas's prequel series, we've had The Force Awakens and Rogue One.
Which The Force Awakens was obviously Episode 7, and Rogue One was a spin-off series that's technically a prequel to Episode 4.
And currently, I prefer Rogue One.
I do too, and we're in the tiny minority on that. But I will say I've seen them both multiple times now, and I feel like The Force Awakens gets worse every time I see it, and Rogue One gets better every time I see it. Like, honestly, I just like it more and more. And going forward, I think I'm actually going to be a lot more excited about the spin-offs that have a lot more room to breathe and do their own thing and really explore the Star Wars universe over the saga that's all built on it has to be the Skywalker family and legacy. It has to rhyme like poetry. It has to fit into the specific storyline with these pre-established characters in these specific locations.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I've been really worried about, because after watching The Force Awakens, one of the biggest complaints that a lot of people had was the fact that it just felt like a redo of A New Hope.
Which, to be honest, I completely support, because after the prequels, you had to prove that you could do Star Wars. For real this time. So using the blueprints of the original was not a bad idea, and I'm sure a lot of Star Wars nerds really like this. I really like this. Seeing a lot of the original concepts and constructions and characters and designs was really cool. I mean, BB-8 is never going to replace R2-D2 for me, but it was really cool seeing the first version. I like that. I mean, there was a lot more than just BB-8, but I just picked that as an example.
Yeah, and I really like the designs, which I know that they're the Chrome Troopers, I think they're called, but they look like crying stormtroopers. And I actually kind of like that design because their Death Star was blown up. All of their resources were diminished, and then they had to rebuild, and there's this new order, which is sort of a rebellion of its own, but the rebellion is, coming against the original Rebel Alliance.
And I will say, with both The Force Awakens and Rogue One, my favorite elements were seeing the kinds of characters that we hadn't seen on screen before. So with The Force Awakens, Finn was my favorite character. Partly because John Boyega is just incredibly charismatic and charming, but also because it was really cool to see a stormtrooper who was a well-developed individual character. We hadn't seen that before. In Rogue One, I liked seeing somebody in tune with the Force who wasn't literally a Jedi with a lightsaber. That was super cool.
It was really cool to see in the new Star Wars film, that is The Force Awakens, a stormtrooper that is absolutely not a clone. Because that was one of the things I really hated.
He is a test tube baby, though. Which, nothing wrong with that as far as I'm concerned. I really like that storyline. But the storyline of a test tube baby who was specifically designed from birth to be a human weapon, who then decides that they don't like their violent path in life that they've been set down and tries to rebel against the, authoritarian forces that put them in that position to begin with, that's traditionally a woman's storyline. And besides the fact that I really like those kinds of cliches and tropes, it was cool to see that happen to a dude, and especially a stormtrooper. It was cool to see, like, underneath their helmets, they're all individual people. Because, you know, there's kind of like that joke on How I Met Your Mother, where people with, like, a passing interest just think stormtroopers are all robots.
Yeah.
But then, of course, they kind of wrote Finn as a fucking psychopath.
Well, and one of my complaints with the prequels were that all of the stormtroopers were clones of Jango Fett, and I was just like, okay, so first of all, you turn Boba Fett. We never see Boba Fett because he's too young in the film. And we have somebody who has the Mandalorian armor that looks practically like it, except it's blue instead of green. And then all of the troopers are designed and essentially him, you know, clones of him. And it really irked me the wrong way, and the fact that they went back into the original trilogy and like changed Boba Fett's voice so that he now had Jango Fett's voice. That really irked me the wrong way, and I'm really glad that we are now establishing that stormtroopers are more than just clones.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. The biggest weakness, I think, in The Force Awakens was 100% how ridiculously overpowered and underdeveloped Rey is as a character. She's already more powerful than pretty much everyone except for Palpatine and Vader.
Yeah,
and she hasn't had any training. She doesn't know who the fuck she is, what her powers are. She doesn't know about, like, the history of Jedis or how to use the Force. Nothing. And she's already more powerful than anyone's ever been in the series except for those two. It's ridiculous, and she doesn't have the character to back it up. And that's not Daisy Ridley's fault. Besides her accent, I think Daisy Ridley does a fantastic job. It's just, she is written very blandly. She's not a very engaging character. And moving forward, I don't know where you can take her character, because she's already too powerful, and she doesn't have enough going on with her to make me interested. And also, you said you haven't seen any trailers. I've seen, like, some teaser images, like, from 15-second, 30-second trailers. I didn't see, like, the one that's supposed to be really terrible and spoilery. But I have seen her practicing with a lightsaber. And it's kind of hysterical how bad it looks. Now, it's, like, a couple of shots. And I don't know if that's the point. Like, it could very well be, but considering that she already fights with a stick in the previous films, that doesn't make any sense to me. Why she would suddenly be bad in practicing, but it's a little hysterical seeing the way that she swings it, because, like, there's no physical reason to do that unless you literally have no control over your body. It's so silly looking.
Yeah, that was one of my biggest complaints with the lightsaber battles in the prequels, but also just in the Star Wars universe after you had the original trilogy, was we have trained martial arts instructors now. We have choreographers from China and various other countries that have mastered filmic fight choreography, you know, specifically swordplay. And the fact that you have all Jedis essentially fighting in the same stance and fighting style, I have a problem with that. I personally would like to see various fighting styles, which we have seen in the video games.
But especially between the Jedi and the Sith. At the very least, shouldn't there be, like, more of a stylistic difference between the two sides?
To be fair, we did get a little bit of that with Darth Maul.
Darth Maul was awesome.
And we did get that with Darth Vader for the original series, because he was using Force powers.
But that's the original series. We're talking about outside the original series.
Okay, I do not like this character, but General Grievous did have his own fighting style. Yes, it was a little too ridiculous for me to appreciate. You know, what was it, like 6 lightsabers or something that he was, like, spinning around his head, and then he had, like, 2 in his hand? It was... George Lucas seemed obsessed with putting as many lightsabers on the screen as possible in those movies.
Yeah, if you thought that One Piece got ridiculous, that is too much to deal with.
So, going into this film, one of the worries that I have is, so our last film was very much like A New Hope. I have a feeling that this film is going to be emulating The Empire Strikes Back. You have the training from Luke, which has already been established.
Because it has to repeat like poetry.
Yeah, and so there might be a dynamic with Luke and Yoda and all that kind of stuff, and the temptation to the dark side. What might be interesting is if she actually turns to the dark side in this film.
That's the only way I can see her character doing anything noteworthy or of interest, and I don't see it happening for a second. I think that there might be something with Kylo Ren going back and forth between the light side and the dark side because he already has that history built into his backstory. But I don't think that Miss Goody Two Shoes Rey is really going to be, at all tempted by the dark side. And honestly, I'm worried that if they try it, it's going to be really unbelievable.
Well, also, unfortunately, you're going to get a cry from certain female fans that will say, oh, you turned this wonderful character that we love and now she's bad.
Oh my god, how dare a strong, independent female character actually have, some moral complexity to her character. She could actually be, a normal human being? What? No, that's not a good role model for our children. The role models for our children need to be really, really stupid and also sexually harass men. A la Wonder Model and Ghostbusters. But don't you dare give them moral complexity. Flail.
Yeah, so I will say one of the weakest links of the last film outside of the whole thing with Rey, not only was she the strongest Jedi that we've seen in the films, because, okay.
The only two people stronger than her are both Sith, right?
There was a Jedi in the Force Unleashed game that was
That's a game. No. That's Extended Universe, doesn't count.
Okay, but
Extended Universe.
Alright. So, yeah, she's definitely the strongest Jedi that we've seen.
To the point where I'm like, why does she even need to train? Really? Not the point. The other thing I'm super worried about is the other thing I really know about the movie, I know way too much, is the fucking porgs. Kill it with fire. I don't like the porgs. They remind me of pugs, where they're like, oh, what the fuck did mankind do to nature? You look so sad and upset. You're just, literally the ending of The Fly. Whenever I look at a porg, I just see that expression from The Fly, where he puts the shotgun up to his head and it's like, kill me! And it's like a mockingbird, just, oh my god. And it's gonna make Chewbacca noises, because it emulates its owner's speech. Oh my god, it looks like a fucking Furby. I already hate it. I'm sorry, I do. I shouldn't be that biased, since I haven't seen the movie, and I didn't even see it in a trailer. I literally have not even seen a porg in a trailer, and I already feel like I've seen too damn much of this fucking porg, and I hate it.
Have you seen that poster where it's the poster for The Last Jedi and every
it's just
character?
porgs.
Yeah.
That's what it feels like it's just been porg.
Well, and that's one of the things that unfortunately is tied to Star Wars is I know that they want to sell toys.
Honestly, you know what I think the porg is? I think it's because of their misstep with the toys from The Force Awakens. Because there was this huge scandal about how there was a shortage of Rey toys and an oversupply of Kylo Ren toys. Because they thought everybody was going to want the Kylo Ren toys and nobody fucking wanted it because Kylo Ren is just a whiny emo bitch boy. And everybody wanted fucking Rey because, well, she's the Jedi protagonist. Of course you want Rey. And she wasn't in anything, and they weren't selling enough toys because they didn't have it. I think they're trying to sidestep that by making the most marketable toy-driven character just a side animal character completely devoid of any sort of oh, you're just being sexist sort of scandal about it.
Yeah, and what's funny about it is, as far as toys are concerned, I would say that The Force Awakens and Rogue One weren't that toy marketable. I'm talking
even though the only toys that I bought from either of those movies was my Jyn Erso figure. Yeah,
but then again, you and I are big fans of that movie. So
well,
it's outside of here's the thing. When you're selling toys, half the time it isn't even about what the context of the movie is. Sometimes it is, but it's more like, oh, does it look cool? Because look at the prequels. Like, most of that stuff looks cool, but, like, in context is pretty crappy.
To be fair, I think that's the only reason why my mom still really likes Jar Jar Binks, is because I think she's only seen the toys and thinks that it looks cute and hasn't actually seen him in the movies and doesn't know how obnoxious they are. I mean, to be fair, when I was little, before I saw the movies, I saw pictures of Jar Jar Binks and I was like, he's gonna be my favorite! Because I like the big fucking flappy ears and the weird snail eyes on the top. I think it's a really good design. Like, legitimately, I think Jar Jar Binks has a great design. I think he's a really, really cool-looking character. But then, of course, I saw the movies and I was like, fuck you! No!
So, I did hear something online that said that, Kylo Ren is a more hated character than Jar Jar Binks. And I'm like, okay, you might be going a little far on there. Because, like, you know, a walking minstrel... Mm-hmm. You're telling me that a walking minstrel is worse than Kylo Ren, the fucking emo kid?
No.
I'm sorry, I can't go that far.
I don't know anybody who hates Kylo Ren more. I mean, that's completely, how do you say, like, circumstantial.
I will say that,
anecdotal, sorry.
I will say Adam Driver's accent definitely doesn't serve
Adam Driver is a good actor, but that was just such weird casting, especially because he looks nothing like his parents.
Yeah.
At all. Like, that's just fucking weird. He doesn't look or sound or act anything like his parents.
Yeah, I think they just picked him because they wanted Adam Driver.
Well, honestly, I think they picked him because he's cheap.
Yeah, that is true, but they could have picked an unknown. I get that he was relatively
fairly unknown.
Like, yeah, but they could have picked like somebody fresher than that.
Well, no, because then you have the Donald Glover moment. If you pick someone fresher, they might show up to set and be like, is this acting? I don't know.
Oh, watch Weirdo. It's great.
Well, everybody should know everything about Childish Gambino. He's fantastic.
So that being said, there is one character that I am really curious about and I've speculated about. Everybody's speculated about. I don't know if they're going to reveal who this character actually is. I'm pretty sure they will. But that is the character played by Andy Serkis, unfortunately in an unremarkable role. Yeah.
So far. I hate everything about his character from what I've seen so far, though. I think the design is lazy and boring. I think the fact that he's a hologram is just kind of dumb. I don't really like it at all. The fact that he's, like, supposed to be some... Like, they took the term big bad way too fucking literally.
Well, I personally think that it's harkening back to the original design of Emperor Palpatine.
I know, but for Emperor Palpatine, I feel like there's a very good reason why they revised their design.
Because having chimpanzee eyes was a little much?
Well, everything about, like, dude, he looks like an aborted fetus. It's really weird. I don't like it. There's nothing wrong with having, like, an aborted... I've made those. Like, it's fine. But I don't think that works for like, a Star Wars character. You gotta explain
this just so the podcast isn't,
no,
like,
yeah, I made a monster for Accidental Gods.
Which is on this
our
channel,
film,
so
yeah,
you can
that we
check it
worked
out.
on. The monster was designed after a fetus. Not a human fetus, mind you, but still. Duh, that's what it's supposed to look like. So I don't really have anything wrong with that conceptually. I just don't think that it fits into Star Wars as, like, your main antagonist. Like, your ultra at the top of the chain. Like, I mean, it's essentially like you're picking, you know, the president. To put it in American terms. Well, you're picking the evil president. But you wouldn't really have, like, an aborted fetus as, like, the dude. Like, who the fuck would put him at the top of the food chain?
Given that Star Wars was inspired by 2001, I could see the parallel with that
with
and
the
Star
giant
Child.
baby. Yeah, but like I said, it just doesn't fit. It doesn't feel like it belongs there.
Well,
and honestly, it just looks lazy and bland. I'm not that interested in it.
I don't think Snoke is real.
Well, no shit.
That's my ultimate prediction for this new film. I think Snoke is Luke. I think Luke is
no, I get that, but
manipulating Kylo Ren.
If Snoke isn't real, like, that's not physically what he looks like, why would that be the design that you come up with for your evil alter ego? I mean, I get that he's kind of supposed to look like Darth Vader, too, without the helmet, but, like, Darth Vader looked fucking gnarly. This dude just looks like an amorphic blob. It's just bland. There's nothing striking about his design.
Well, going off of that, he does have a similar head scar that Darth Vader had when he took off his mask in Return of the Jedi.
Exactly.
And part of my argument that it's Luke projecting this to Kylo Ren is I have the
whole thing from the original Return of the Jedi where he puts the mask on and he says, I am Darth Vader now. Yeah, I get it.
Well, I think what Luke Skywalker is trying to do is I think Luke Skywalker has learned more about the Force and he's trying to truly bring balance to the Force. And balance isn't letting the good side, letting the light side win. I think what happened after Return of the Jedi is the power shifted too much to the good, and then the bad had to balance itself out. So I think Luke Skywalker is working essentially against both sides to balance out the Force in the universe.
I mean, here's the thing. I like the Dark Luke storyline. And I like Luke as a darker character, like somebody who's not like true blue Jedi all the way. But part of the appeal of Luke is he's not really that much of like a mastermind. He's not like super intelligent or really about strategy. So even as like an old dude, I can't really picture his character doing something like that.
To be fair, there has been a lot of time that's passed.
No, I know. Like I said, this is a complete projection. I have no idea if it's true or not. And the biggest mystery for me about the new movie is going to be, what is Luke Skywalker like now, like decades later? That's the big question for me. Like, that's most of my interest in seeing this film. It's just like, I really don't even care about the whole race parents thing, because honestly, there's only one option that even makes any fucking sense. And no matter what the option is, I'm not gonna like it, because her parents are fucking dicks. But Luke is like the only thing I'm even interested in. But I don't see that right now. And that could totally change, and if they make that character arc work well, I'm all for it, but I don't know.
Yeah, what I see is Luke definitely visually looks like Obi-Wan Kenobi, and they're obviously drawing a parallel there. Which, it would be weird to repeat that story again, because like it's one of those things that like I'm sort of weary about them just repeating things. Well, so you already had like the Master die, like the recreation of Obi-Wan's death with Han Solo, so to do it again would kind of be weird.
Yeah, but one of the more interesting ideas about who Rey's parents are is if she is a Kenobi, which honestly I don't think is going to be true, and I don't think that makes any sense, but the idea of like a Kenobi teaching a Skywalker and then a Skywalker teaching a Kenobi, that's a more interesting variation of the whole it's poetry so it has to rhyme thing. I just think the poetry it has to rhyme thing is just too constrictive for a 12, possibly more, like, saga, you know? Wait, no, it's gonna be a 9-part, possibly 12-part saga. I think that's just too constricting.
I think it could be interesting if her parentage is Sith, like if her father is Palpatine.
Because that's definitely a theory.
We don't know a lot about the Palpatines, at least as far as the movies are concerned. And for anyone who wants to say, oh, the expanded universe, this and that, the films have betrayed this expanded universe. So a lot of things are up in the air as far as the films are concerned. While there are some mirrorings that are happening with some of the original expanded universe, as far as the new films have come out, they have taken a lot of liberties and sort of abandoned that to a lot of hardcore fans' chagrin.
But let's be honest, like, as we'll see how it turns out, but I honestly think the only thing that makes sense is she is Han and Leia's kid, and she is Ren's brother.
Yeah,
and Luke's niece.
That would parallel the original concept for what this future trilogy was supposed to be. Anyways,
So instead of being father and son, it's going to be brother and sister.
because Star Wars is a family drama.
Yeah,
AKA a space
she's still
soap
going to be a
opera.
Skywalker. She's going to be like, she has the flight technique from Han Solo, even though she never knew him. Whatever. And she has the Force from Leia.
I mean, that's significantly
so neat.
more ridiculous
It's
than
so neat and wrapped up and simple and incestuous. It's just boring.
That's significantly more ridiculous than the Game of Thrones thing, where every single person's child has like the same hair color as their like lineage.
Well,
because
no, that's. I mean, when our world was at that technological level, that made sense to them. That's not that outlandish. You know,
but when the Tullys have red hair,
like,
the Lannisters have.
I get what you mean. Even though in the TV show, John's eye color makes no fucking sense because both of his parents had blue eyes, and he has stranger's brown eyes. You know, whatever. They're not hardcore about that enough, but. I mean, we still have it today where if one of the kids has a recessive redheaded gene and their parents don't have red hair, there is the whole thing of like, oh, well, Even though we have the technology to know that that's not necessarily how genes work. But that definitely doesn't work that way with, like, flying skills. I mean, Jesus Christ. And if it is the way it works, then shouldn't she have had, like, the same reaction to the Millennium Falcon that she had towards the lightsaber? I mean, come on.
Yeah, and one of the complaints that I want to get back to, because I know it's kind of been done to death, but the reason why I personally get mad about the Millennium Falcon thing is, okay, Luke Skywalker was never given the opportunity to fly the Millennium Falcon. That makes sense because it wasn't in a junkyard, etc., etc., etc. But Luke Skywalker had flight training. That was what he wanted to do for his military career. He wanted to join the Rebel Alliance and to fight against the Empire. And his Uncle Owen wanted him to work in...
Is that true?
Yeah.
I think he wanted to work for the Empire originally. At the very beginning of the fourth movie, didn't he? He did want to. He didn't want to fight for the Empire, right? Okay.
Yeah.
I just want to be sure it wasn't delusional because I was like,
Well, we're gonna watch it again, so.
Yeah. Like we're literally about to turn it on, so we'll see.
Yeah. No, you're totally right.
Okay.
At least I.
Boom.
Yeah.
Nerd privilege is revoked.
Well, you know, it's been a while. So, yeah, that's our take. And we'll see you tomorrow.
Much looking forward to it, and I feel like I'm not going to like it very much, honestly.
Well, here's the thing. I am pretty much a fanboy of Rian Johnson. He hasn't made a bad film yet. I loved Brick. I loved Looper. I thought Ozymandias was the best episode of Breaking Bad. Fly, I know everybody else loves it. I thought it was a decent episode. And I really liked 52. Also, Looper is a great film as well.
Dude, Star Wars is not really directed by the directors. Even Rogue One wasn't actually directed by Gareth Edwards, which is probably why I like it so much.
Yeah, and the whole thing with Phil Lord and Chris Miller with the Han Solo movie. Which,
so that's all I'm going to say about that is Star Wars is not directed by directors.
Yeah, which we can get into later about the whole Fox merger and all that kind of stuff. So if you have any comments to say about that, let us know. So what did you guys think of the movie? Because I guarantee most of you listening to this have already seen the movie. Let us know in the comments below, and we'll let you know what we think of the film. Thanks for listening.